They said the retreat was off, too broke for gear and travel. I cooked dehydrated meals alone. That night, my project lead streamed a full bash. Lanterns, music, even a campfire jam. Everyone was there. Except me. I stayed quiet. Until my coordinator texted, "Can you send the $3,100 for upkeep?" I replied, "Not anymore." Every year, I looked forward to it like a kid waiting for Christmas morning. Planning the trip gave me purpose, made me feel whole. It wasn't just a getaway, it was tradition. Ours. My name is Marcus. I'm 33 years old, a structural engineer living in Boise, Idaho. Just me and my dog, Bruno, a sleepy, oversized Great Dane with a bark like thunder and a heart like a toddler's. I'm not what you'd call a social butterfly, but once a year, for the past 7 years, I turned into something close. Every June, I organized an off-grid retreat up at a mountain lodge I inherited from my old college mentor, Mr. Roebuck. It wasn't much: log beams, solar panels, a gravity-fed water tank. But I'd kept it alive, poured money into repairs and new gear every year. That place had history, not just mine, but ours. Dan, Jeff, and Tara, my closest friends since undergrad. We used to cram for finals in the same hallway lounge, eat ramen at 3 a.m., drive across the state for cheap concerts. And when life scattered us into jobs and cities, we made a pact. Once a year, we'd come back together. I made sure of it, every time. The week before the trip, my garage looked like an outfitter's warehouse. I had boxes of freeze-dried meals sorted by taste preference, custom camp mugs with this year's design, a badger and a hammock, fresh trail shoes for everyone's sizes. I even splurged on a new solo stove and installed a handcrafted fire pit out back. Laid every stone myself over Memorial Day weekend. Bruno snoozed in the corner while I triple-checked my inventory list on the garage workbench. I had the meal packs, the satellite radio, spare wool socks for Dan, he always forgot, and even a personalized mold tool for each of them. Their initials were engraved right below the quote. "Here, we don't disappear, we gather." It mattered to me, maybe more than it should have. But I guess that's what happens when your own family splits apart before you've figured out who you are. When holiday dinners become quiet texts and we'll see calls. These people, they became the thread I didn't want to let go of. And every year, when we gathered at the trailhead and made that first climb up to the lodge, I felt it again, like we were 22 and invincible, like nothing had changed. The Thursday before the retreat, I loaded up the SUV with gear while Bruno drooled on the folded back seat. The lodge was cleaned, the propane topped off, the backup batteries tested. I had even carved a new wooden sign for the front porch. "Welcome home, Roebuck Crew." Everything was ready. That night, I sat on the couch with a warm beer, Bruno's head in my lap, and stared at the fire pit's blueprints spread out on the coffee table. I had drawn them on graph paper with ridiculous precision, even labeled the rock types. Tara used to tease me about stuff like that. "You're the only guy who'd blueprint a bonfire," she'd laugh. I smiled just thinking about it. About all of them. Their jokes, their terrible card game rules, the way we'd sing off-key to 90s playlists while Dan grilled hot dogs and Jeff tried to keep the solar generator from exploding. That night, I fell asleep with the kind of peace that comes from believing in something steady, something solid. I didn't know it yet, but this year's retreat would be the last one planned in faith. And everything I believed about us, about what we were, was already starting to crack. 3 days before the retreat, I was in the middle of vacuum-sealing beef stroganoff packets when my phone buzzed with a message from the group chat we'd called Roebuck Legends since 2019. I wiped my hands on my jeans and glanced at the screen, expecting a "can't wait" or a dumb meme from Dan. It was Tara. "Sorry, all too broke for the trip this year." Rain check? That was it. No emojis. No explanation. Just those 2 sentences like someone tossing a note over their shoulder while walking away. I waited. 1 minute. Then 2. Nothing. No replies from Jeff or Dan. No, oh man, really? No, let's figure something out. Just silence. I stared at the screen, rereading the message like it would change the more I looked. I typed a reply. "Everything's covered. No worries about cost." Then I erased it. Typed again. "All the gear's packed already. I've got your trail shoes ready too." Deleted it. Tried a different angle. "We can scale it back if needed. Just want to see you guys." Deleted that too. Eventually, I just sent. "Understood." Bruno looked up at me from the kitchen floor like he could tell something was off. I gave him a half smile and ran a hand over his big head. "Guess it's just you and me, bud." He thumped his tail once and laid it back down. The rest of that day moved in slow, quiet circles. I went back to my garage and started wrapping in used gear in plastic bins. Tents, still crisp from REI. The mugs with the hammock badger. The fire starter kits I'd pre-labeled with everyone's names. I paused at the box labeled Jeff. Inside was the engraved multi-tool and a handwritten note I hadn't even told him about. Just something simple. For every time you fix the coffee press with duct tape and charm, use this instead. I folded the note, slipped it under the elastic band, and put the lid on. My hands felt heavier than they should have. Outside, the sun was high and sharp, casting long lines through the garage windows. I sat down on the edge of the workbench and stared at the floor for a while. The silence in my chest wasn't anger, exactly. It was displacement, like someone had reached inside and shifted everything a few inches to the left, just enough to make nothing feel quite right. The lodge was waiting. I'd stocked the pantry, tested the solar rig, even filled the rain barrel. It was ready for laughter and footsteps and the kind of easy conversations that only happen when the cell service is gone. And no, nothing. No talk of carpooling. No fake arguments over trail mix flavors. No Jeff pretending to get altitude sickness to skip cleanup duty. Just a dead thread and the echo of a tradition that felt suddenly terribly optional. That night, I made dinner anyway, boiled some of the camp pasta and ate it on the porch. Bruno sat beside me, head on my knee. I was watching something invisible in the trees. It was supposed to be our send-off dinner. Instead, I chewed in silence, trying not to ask the one question that had started to gnaw at me the moment Tara's message came in. Was this really about money? Or was it about me? I didn't want to answer that yet. So I sat there until the sky turned dark, the wind picked up, and the leftover heat from my solo stove flickered out. Saturday night came anyway. It was the night we were supposed to be huddled around the fire pit, the new one I built by hand, passing around that dumb tin of chocolate-covered espresso beans Tara always brought and pretending Jeff's Spotify playlist didn't suck. Instead, I was home, still in Boise. Bruno was curled up at the foot of the couch, snoring soft and steady like he didn't know anything had gone wrong. My phone buzzed. Tara is live. I almost didn't tap it. Thought about just turning the phone over and letting it buzz itself into silence. But something in me itched. A reflex, maybe. Habit. I opened the notification, and there it was. The lodge. My lodge. The camera swayed a little at first, then steadied. Someone, probably Tara, was walking through the trees, panning left and right like she was showing off a rental cabin. Except it wasn't a rental. It was the place I'd spent the last 7 years turning into a sanctuary for us. They were all there. Jeff was setting up a beer pong table using the cooler lids I had stored under the porch. Dan walked past the camera shirtless, carrying 2 six-packs and laughing like it was any other year. Music played in the background. The portable speakers I'd bought last spring. Lights, my lights, were strung between the pine trees, just like I'd planned. I could even see the corner of the fire pit glowing in the dark, flames dancing over the stones I laid with my own hands. And then I saw it, on the front porch, in a neat stack. The unopened care packages. Each box still wrapped, each one labeled. Dan, Jeff, Tara. Inside were their custom trail knives, new wool socks, and laminated trail maps. I had packed them all with so much damn care. No one had touched them. Tara's voice came through the audio, faint but clear. Dan, grab the knife. It's on the porch. He did. He picked up the box labeled for Jeff, tore it open, and pulled out the knife I had spent weeks picking out. I had it engraved at a little shop downtown. For the fire builder, the trail finder, the one who always brought us back. He used it to crack open a bottle of beer, just pressed it against the cap and popped it like it was nothing. The live chat lit up with laughing emojis and inside jokes I used to be part of. I didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there with the phone in my hand, the blue glow washing over me while my lodge, my place, filled up with people who had decided I wasn't worth inviting. This wasn't a case of life getting in the way. This wasn't a last-minute cancellation or a scheduling conflict or a financial hiccup. This was a decision. They planned it. They packed for it. They drove up, lit the fire pit, strung the lights, and celebrated without me. And they didn't just leave me behind. They lied. They took what I built and made it their own, without a single thought about what that would do to me. And worst of all, they still used everything I gave them. The gear, the lodge, the supplies, even my dog's old hiking bowl was sitting by the door. I should have felt rage. I should have felt something volcanic, explosive. But I didn't. I just felt hollow. Like someone had reached inside and scooped out the parts of me that believed in people. Bruno nudged my leg with his nose, sensing the shift. I set the phone down on the table, face down, and leaned back into the couch. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching the last little bit of faith I had in those people burn away. Right there beside the fire pit I built for them. The message came in just after midnight. Jeff, hey man, can you wire the usual for lodge upkeep? Appreciate it. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the reply button. I didn't even feel surprise. Just that strange, weightless feeling again, like gravity had quietly stopped working on certain parts of my life. Bruno lifted his head from the couch cushion and blinked at me. He didn't bark or shift, just watched. I didn't reply to Jeff's message. I didn't have to. Because right then, something in me switched off, or maybe it finally switched on. Not in anger, not in pain, in clarity. The kind that feels like cold water to the face after a long, foggy dream. I opened my laptop. First, the utilities. I logged into the lodge's solar service dashboard and paused the auto payments. Monthly fee canceled. Then the propane delivery account. Canceled. Firewood service gone. Even the emergency snowplow contract I'd set up as a precaution, despite how mild the winters had been lately. Every click was slow and deliberate, like I was chiseling away at something big and buried. Next, the cloud drive. I opened the folder we all shared for lodge memories, photos, itinerary templates, funny edits of Dan's awful hiking selfies. I removed Tara's access first, then Dan's, then Jeff's. They'd notice eventually. They'd pretend it was a glitch, but it wouldn't be. After that, the subscription list. My audiobook account, the one Dan used to stream hiking podcasts. Unsubscribed. Password changed. Jeff's Kindle login? Logged out. The Spotify family plan? Done. Tara's email was the last one on that list. By the time I was finished, it was 1:37 a.m. The silence in the house felt cleaner. Less like a wait and more like breathing room. Bruno snored lightly beside me. I leaned back in my chair and looked around the living room. For the first time, it felt like mine. Not a waiting room between other people's priorities. Not a holding space until the next group text came in. Just mine. And it was strange how none of it hurt. How there was no dramatic soundtrack playing in my head. No fantasy of confrontation or revenge. Just a calm, methodical severing. The truth was, I had been the foundation of that group for years. Not because they asked me to be, but because I chose it. I fed it, funded it, fueled it. And now? Now I was done. I closed the laptop and sat back. The room was dark, except for the soft blue light of the router blinking in the corner. Bruno shifted, gave a low sigh, and laid his head on my foot. Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere in the trees, a loose shingle or a bird feeder clattered softly. But inside, peace. Not the kind you earn by winning something. The kind you get when you finally stop giving something that was never seen, never valued, never returned. I wasn't building for them anymore. I wasn't waiting for replies. I wasn't asking why. I was free. They started calling when the lights went out at the lodge. At first, it was Jeff. Hey man, not sure if the generator's dead or what, but the power just cut out. Can you check the system? Then Tara chimed in. The shared drive isn't working. Did something get deleted? By Sunday evening, the texts had turned frantic. The lodge Wi-Fi was down, no hot water, and the propane ran out halfway through grilling. I didn't reply. Monday morning, I loaded Bruno into the back of the SUV and drove. The mountains looked the same as always, sun catching in the peaks, trails still half-melted from late snow. As I got closer to the lodge, I could see the trash bags piled against the firewood bin. Empty beer boxes, crushed plastic water jugs. They hadn't even tried to hide the mess. I parked in the same gravel spot I always used and stepped out. Bruno stretched long and slow, sniffed the air, then followed me up the porch stairs. The screen door creaked like it always did, but this time, I didn't feel warmth when it opened. I walked in and found Jeff first, slouched on the couch, scrolling his phone. The place smelled like leftover smoke and half-eaten snack food. A cold pot of coffee sat abandoned on the counter. Jeff looked up like he'd seen a ghost. Marcus. Man. Hey. No guilt. Just that dumb half-smile he always wore when he wanted something. I didn't sit. Didn't drop my bag. I walked over to the kitchen island, unplugged the shared iPad from the charging dock, and held it in my hand. Tara appeared from the hallway. She froze mid-step when she saw me. Her eyes darted from my face to the iPad. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Dan wasn't there. Probably in the woods or asleep in the loft. Didn't matter. I spoke calmly. My voice didn't rise. 5 years I kept this place running. Tara shifted her weight like she wanted to say something but couldn't decide what. I kept going. I bought the water system, installed the solar, covered every meal, every tent, every first aid kit you forgot to pack. I turned slightly toward Jeff. You asked me to wire funds for upkeep while drinking beer on my porch. The same porch you didn't think I deserved to sit on. No one spoke. No one moved. Every year, I built this trip with my time, my money, and my trust. I held up the iPad. This had the photos, the routes, the shared music, all of it. I paused, met both their eyes. It's not yours anymore. Jeff stood, like he was going to protest, maybe explain it all away, maybe say something about how it wasn't personal, but I cut him off. No one gets to erase me and keep the house I built. Tara's jaw tightened. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. So this is it? Jeff said, arm slightly out. You're just walking away? No, I said. I already walked away. I'm just here to pick up what's mine. I didn't wait for a response. I turned, stepped off the porch, and walked straight back to the SUV. Bruno trotted behind me like it was any other day. I buckled the iPad into the glove box, climbed in, and pulled away. No yelling, no parting words. Just the crackle of gravel under tires. Let them sit in their silence. Let them look around the lodge and realize every piece of it came from my hands. My work, my belief in them. That belief was gone now. And I didn't owe them an explanation. Only the truth. And the truth was this: it ends now. The first wave of silence was nice, but it didn't last. By Tuesday, the second wave came, this time from the edges. Not from Jeff or Tara or Dan, but from the ones who never showed up at the lodge, the ones who knew about the retreat but didn't bother with the hike. Mutual acquaintances, old classmates, people who thought they still had a say. First it was Lauren, someone I hadn't heard from in months. She texted like we were mid-conversation. Saw what happened. Just wanted to say, I think you're taking this too far. No context. No hello. Just a verdict. Then came a call from someone I barely knew from undergrad. I let it go to voicemail, but he tried again a few hours later. Then Lauren called. This time I answered. Marcus, she said, her voice soft like I was a patient she didn't want to startle. Come on. You've always been the calm one. The steady one. You're not the type to make a scene. I leaned back in my chair. Bruno sprawled across my feet. This isn't a scene, Lauren. It's a boundary. There was a pause. Then a small laugh, tight and polite. I mean, look, I get it. They screwed up. But you've always been okay staying in the background. Why let it bother you now? I almost smiled. Because there it was. The quiet assumption. The idea I'd signed some invisible agreement to be treated like a supporting character in everyone else's story. I was never okay with it, I said. I just didn't say anything. Another pause. You really don't think you're overreacting? She asked. Everyone's struggling right now. People are flaking all over the place. Why take it so personally? I opened the spreadsheet I'd built over the years. It wasn't fancy. Just a list. Receipts, itemized purchases, subscription logs. A tally of everything I'd ever paid for the retreat, for the group, for the silence they expected. I read the number aloud. $37,412. The line went quiet. I didn't fill the space. I just let it sit there. Because that was the part they never saw, not just the money, but the weight, the expectation. The way I had become the backbone of a friendship that only stood upright when I was doing the heavy lifting. Lauren finally spoke, but her voice was different now, smaller. I didn't know it was that much. Most people don't, I said. They don't ask. They just assume. I didn't hang up right away. I let her be the one to end the call. And she did, quietly, after promising to talk to them. But I knew what that meant. They weren't reaching out to fix anything. They were reaching out to manage it, to reframe it, to make sure I didn't burn it all down in a way that made them look bad. Later that night, I got a message from Dan, the first since the stream. No apology. Just, didn't think you'd take it like this, man. It was just a weekend. I typed a reply, then deleted it. He didn't deserve clarity. He'd made it clear I was optional. Background. The guy with the gear, the cabin, the truck, the things that made the trip run but never got mentioned when it was time to toast someone. Let them talk. Let them compare notes and try to rewrite the story. Because I had the receipts. I had the peace. And more than anything, I had finally stopped standing in the background of my own life. Let them fill that silence without me. The letter arrived in a pale blue envelope, handwritten, sealed neatly, like it wanted to pretend it came from a softer place. It was from Tara. I opened it slowly, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of black coffee and Bruno curled beneath my chair. The house was quiet, steady. The letter started with, I'm sorry you felt hurt. Not, I'm sorry we hurt you. And from there, it went as expected. Flowery regret, carefully measured nostalgia, a few references to the good old days, and a note about how we never thought it would spiral like this. Then, at the bottom, the sentence that told me everything. You've always seemed fine being overlooked. I sat with that for a while. Read it again, because that was the core of it. Not the trip, not the retreat, not even the live stream. It was the assumption, the quiet, comfortable belief that I didn't need to be seen, that I was built to carry things, not to belong. They believed I was fine being erased, because I never said otherwise, because I always showed up, smiled, paid, planned, picked up the slack. I was dependable, and in their world, dependability doesn't need appreciation. It just needs to keep working. I folded the letter, tucked it back into the envelope, and slid it into the drawer with the rest of the documents. Then I opened my laptop. Folder name, Final Proof. Inside it, I placed everything. Screenshots of the live stream. Jeff's message asking for money. Sent the same night they used my fire pit. A spreadsheet of financial contributions, labeled by year. Cloud access logs showing the removal dates. Emails, confirmations, receipts. The photo of my unopened care packages sitting on the porch. No angry commentary. No speeches. Just a record. Because people forget. They distort. They tell stories where they're still the hero. But I wasn't leaving room for revision. After I archived the folder, I opened a separate tab. The property deed transfer form I'd already begun a week prior. The lodge. The heart of everything. It was hard to look at it, even now. My name in bold across the top. The place I'd built from scraps and summers and scraped together paychecks. The one I had kept alive so it could be ours. But it wasn't ours. Not anymore. It never really had been. A few months back, I'd reached out to a nonprofit I'd quietly donated to for years, a veterans rehab program that helped with wilderness therapy. They'd been searching for a space in the Idaho mountains. A place for recovery, solitude, reconnection. The lodge would be perfect. I confirmed the transfer. No fanfare. No press release. Just a simple email and signed documents. They'd take over next month. Bring in their own team. Clean it up. Fill it with new people who actually needed it. People who wouldn't mistake care for currency. People who wouldn't call something a gift while pocketing the receipt. I closed the laptop and leaned back. The lodge didn't belong to them anymore. And it didn't belong to me. It belonged to the people who would build something true there. Tara's letter sat unopened again on the table, like it was waiting to be responded to. But I had already given my answer. It wasn't a message. It was a deed. And it said one thing, louder than any reply ever could. I'm done holding the weight for people who won't carry me back. The envelopes were identical. Plain white. Certified mail. No return address. Just 3 names in careful print. Each one written with the same steady hand I used when designing blueprints for buildings that wouldn't fall apart under pressure. Tara, Jeff, Dan. Inside each envelope was the same thing. A breakdown of 6 years' worth of financial records. Trip by trip. Item by item. A cold, precise log of everything I had covered without question. The spreadsheet totaled to the penny. Lodge maintenance, gear, food, fuel, even subscription costs for shared services, Spotify, audiobook libraries, map apps. At the top of the document, bold and centered. This was never a gift. It was a pattern. I didn't include a request for repayment. I wasn't expecting closure. I just wanted them to hold it in their hands. To sit with the truth they'd been pretending not to notice for years. I wanted them to see the number. I wanted them to realize what it cost to be the one who always showed up. I mailed the packages on a Wednesday morning. No return receipt. No tracking. Just sent them out and left the post office like I'd just taken off a weighted coat I didn't know I'd been wearing. By Thursday evening, the subtweet started. First, Jeff. Some people really love acting like martyrs. Must be exhausting pretending to be the only adult in the room. Then Dan, never one for subtlety. Fun fact, if you keep receipts like it's a hobby, maybe you're not a friend. Maybe you're an accountant. And finally, Tara. Hers was the most polished, like she wanted to be misinterpreted. When someone burns the bridge they built themselves, it says more about them than anyone on the other side. I didn't respond, didn't comment, didn't even feel much. The old me, the one who scheduled monthly lodge upkeep and mailed birthday cards even when no one sent them back, would have drafted a reply. Something calm, civil, fair. But I wasn't that guy anymore. That guy had been erased from a live stream and replaced by a cooler full of beer and a knife cracking open bottles he paid for. I let the silence sit. Let them talk. The next morning, I got a text from Jeff. Hope you feel better. No apology. No recognition. Just that smug, passive line, tossed out like a wet rag over a mess he didn't think he made. I didn't reply. I didn't even open it. I archived it, because I didn't need anything from them anymore. Not guilt, not remorse, not even anger. What I had now is something they'd never understand, not with all their performances in their group chats and their curated narratives. Truth, boundaries, freedom. I used to think being quiet meant being small. But now I knew. Silence could be a wall, and I had finally built mine. The loft had tall windows and unfinished wood floors. The kind that creaked when you stepped too hard and glowed amber in the morning light. It smelled faintly of cedar and paint, clean beginnings, honest ones. I moved into the spoken place at the start of fall. Just me, Bruno, a pile of camping gear I didn't feel like touching yet, and a stack of what I'd salvaged from the old trail sign at the lodge. I didn't know what I'd do with it. Maybe carve it down into something new. Maybe nothing. It felt like the right thing to keep. The first few weeks, I kept waiting for the ache to show up. That post-cut-off emptiness people always talk about. But it never came. In its place, space. Space to think. To breathe. To exist without calculating who needed what from me and when. No spreadsheets, no packages, no text to check every night, just in case. I spent a lot of time sitting by the big window with Bruno, sipping coffee and watching the light shift. Sometimes we went on long walks through the nearby neighborhoods. Sometimes we didn't leave the couch. And slowly, I started reaching out to the people who had never needed anything from me but my time. An old coworker named Jamie invited me to her weekend carving club. I showed up expecting small talk and felt weirdly welcome. Another friend, Rich, someone I'd known from way back in Boise, called to say he'd seen my Instagram update and wanted to grab lunch. No strings. Just food and a conversation that didn't circle back to obligation. They didn't want a lodge, or a checklist, or custom mugs with their names on them. They just wanted me. One crisp Saturday morning, I was at the workbench by the window, sanding down a piece of old pine, part of the lodge sign I'd finally cut loose from the frame. I didn't know what I was turning it into yet. Maybe a shelf. Maybe something small enough to carry. Bruno snored under the table. That's when my phone buzzed. Voicemail from unknown number. I stared at the notification for a few seconds. No name. No message preview. No context. I didn't listen. Didn't need to. Whoever it was, they were late. Too late. And whatever they had to say, I'd already heard the better version in my own silence. I swiped the notification away and set the phone face down. Then I went back to sanding. Not because I was trying to forget the past, but because I didn't owe it anything else. The wood curled beneath my hands in thin ribbons. The loft filled with the sound of calm work. No voices, no demands, no old names circling like gnats. Just sunlight, just wood, just peace. And Bruno, always there, not asking for anything but space at my feet and time beside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't building something for anyone else. I was living in something I built for me.